guys, welcome to Rossi Audio and Cerwin-Vega special again. I mentioned online, because we had a discussion in the Cerwin-Vega group about how to power your Cerwin-Vegas, the right way to power your Cerwin-Vegas. We had, not in our group, but in another group, there was a discussion going on. Someone was using a receiver from the 60s and probably can't have more than 25 watts per channel rated when it was new. And with the years, you know, the caps, they wear out, so it's probably not 25 watts anymore in there. And that sparked off a thread in our group too, and that member was also a member in our group, and he got a little bit butthurt and a little bit sore, and we hurt his feelings by saying the truth and telling the truth. So it goes to show that a lot of people in these other groups can't handle the truth. Grown men acting like freaking babies. So too bad we had to boot him because he started to use profane language. We don't accept that. So a little bit update. My hand is starting to become really well. Bandage is gone, stitches are gone. In wound, out wound. That's over. So let's see. Powering your Cerwin-Vega speakers. I have always been of an opinion that the more is better if it's good. More is not better just because it's more. It has to be good. And what do I mean by that? Well, the power amplifier that you're using has to be of good quality. There is enough examples out there that sells amplifiers with inflated or blown up specs and ratings, and they sell them cheap, but they are far from delivering what they're promising, and they're not stable enough to sustain that over a period of time. We're talking about brands like Pyle, Technical Pro, Behringer, American DJs, GLI, Gem Sound, stuff like that. They have huge inflated wattage on their paper, but can't deliver really that in real life. So without going into too many brands, stay with the brands that are good. You know, Carver Pro, Crown, QSC. If you want to go hi-fi, you can go Electrocompagnia, Dynamic Precision, Krell, Class A. There's a bunch of others. Mondial is good. Aquarius is good. So there's a lot of hi-fi amplifiers too with good power ratings, and that has a power supply and a whole system built up to support that. So let's talk about Cerwin-Vega and how to power your Cerwin-Vega speakers, because this is what's been giving Cerwin-Vega such a bad rap, and that's why people are trashing and bashing Cerwin-Vega, because they're not, well, let me put it like this, they don't have the knowledge, they're ignorant, and they're short-sighted, and they're blind, and they are prejudiced. So let's start with a really small one, 2-way, 6.5 inch on a tweeter. Yes, you can use a receiver on them. You can use a small amp, 40 watt per channel, 50 watt per channel, no problem. When you go up to more of the mid-sized ones that we have over here, they are normally like 2-way, they can be 3-way. They normally have a 10-inch or a 12-inch woofer with a tweeter, or 10 or 12-inch woofer with a small mid and a tweeter. Then we're stepping into a totally different territory, and then we need more power. the HED line was rather sensitive and very efficient. So back in the 70s and 80, 81, 82, they made the HAD, and they didn't fuss if they didn't get too much power. So certain models can take less power. We're not taking all the models under one comb here. So if you have a smaller HED, you can drive 100, 150 watts and be very, very happy with that. And they will even accept 75 to 80 watt and play very, very good. Any less than 75 watts, I wouldn't do. When it comes to the later models of Cerwin-Vega, the big box speakers that most people are into, and the models that are being bashed the most, sadly though, because the big boxes are being bashed, they trash talk all Cerwin-Vegas, and most people haven't heard any of them. Cerwin-Vega made close to over 300 pair models, and the ones who are trash talking Cerwin-Vega has maybe heard one or two models, if they have heard them at all. And when they have them, they run their vintage audio systems on them, and normally that means a very low powered power amp or a receiver. You need power on the big Cerwin-Vegas. When we're talking about the modern line of Cerwin-Vega, the only ones that you can slip away with less wattage is the smaller ones, like the two-way 8-inch, like the VS80. You don't need much watt on those. 75, 80 watt, and they're happy. But what happens when you're going up into speakers like the DX series, the AT series, the RE series, the VS series, the AL, the E700, and stuff like that. And you have 10-inch three-ways, 12-inch three-ways, 15-inch three-ways, and sometimes 15-inch three-ways with 4 drivers. What do you need? Well, you need a good amp of good quality. Start there. And I have always had a rule of thumb. I have taken, and you don't need to do this, but this is me. I have taken, let's say like what I have here. I have a pair of DX9 and a pair of AT15. Both of them are three-ways with 15-inch woofers. The AT is a three-way with 4 drivers. So what I do is I take, when I want to find out how much wattage I minimum have to have, this is minimum, I take the woofers in both speakers, 15, let's say I have 15-inch woofers, 15 and 15 is 30, and I multiply that by 10, then I know that the minimum wattage that I need to drive them in a decent way is 300 watts. If I had 12s, 12 and 12 is 24, multiplied by 10, minimum 240 watts. Then you have the 10 inches, 10 plus 10 is 20, times 10 is 200, so minimum 200 watts. That's minimum, and I like to be above that. So when I recommend wattage for the newer big box Cerwin-Vega speakers, I always say you have to have, if someone asks me, I have a pair of DX9, what do you recommend me to drive on them with power? I always tell them minimum 300 watts. That's minimum. But you can go up to 450, 500, and even 600. And the DX9 can easily also handle 750, 800 watts without a problem. When it comes to the AT15, I say 600 watts is good. Other 15-inch models like the RE, same as the AT, 600 watts is very good, but again minimum 300, so anywhere between 300 and 600. And you got the drift, the 12s, 240 minimum, and on 12s you can go up to about 400, 450 watts and play really well. 10 inches, I want to say you can go up to about 350 and play really good. I wouldn't go too much over 350 watts on the 10 inches because of their voice coil. The 12 inches and the 15 inches has a little bit more robust voice coil, so you can go a little bit higher up. And certain models have vented magnets and vented voice coils and stuff like that. MX and DX has that, so you can power them a little bit more. The problem has always been people have always asked the wrong people. You know, the buyer or the owner of a Cerwin-Vega have always relied on stupid advice, incorrect advice from sellers, especially back in the days when they bought new stuff. This was a worldwide phenomenon, and it doesn't matter if it was here in the States or in Europe. I can take Norway for example. Hi-Fi Klubben, they always, I mean, they had other amps in their system that they sold, but they always, for some reason, had to pack on to people NAD or NOD, which is not sufficient enough for the big Cerwin-Vegas. You can use the NOD amplifiers for the smaller Cerwin-Vegas. You can use a NOD 218 or 216 on a pair of VS80 or even the VS100. But when you talk about the VS120 and the VS150, you don't sell NOD to people and tell them that this rocks. Especially when they then had, back then, they had for about $1,500, $1,700, $100 more. I know, it's a lot of money. But you could get an Electrocompagnia that was 250 watts per channel instead of a NOD 216 that is 150 or 125 or something like that, or a NOD 218 which was 200 watts per channel. But there's more than just wattage we're talking about. We're talking about the whole buildup of the power supply. And damping factor comes in, slew rate comes in, there's a lot of things that comes into play. So sellers back in the day made Cerwin-Vega a disadvantage by advising people and recommending people low wattage amplifiers and receivers. They even recommended receivers with 50 watts and less because they were so efficient and high sensitivity. Well, that doesn't mean you need less wattage to make them play good. Yes, you can play them loud, but you don't have the control, you don't have the headroom, and you for sure don't have the sound quality because that receiver or that amplifier is going to distort. Cerwin-Vega built, every time they built speakers, they always built speakers to be able to handle a lot of power, and they have proven time after time that the more power they get, the better they play, the better the sound quality. So you want to create a situation where you have a lot of headroom. Take the big box speakers, for instance, that was launched in '84. They need a lot of power. And like I said, 10 inches, minimum 200 watts, 350. 200, 350. 12 inches, minimum 240, up to about 450. The 15 inches, minimum 300, and up to 600. Some models, 800. And you will be amazed if you put 600 watts on a Cerwin-Vega speaker, how much headroom and how much control and how big of an influence it has on the sound quality. And this is where all the bashing and trashing and trash talk and comes into play. And the people who do it, they don't know better. You know, they're clueless. They have no knowledge. But they sit in their groups and they think they're gurus and specialists and experts and all kinds of stuff. And I find it stupid when they bash a Cerwin-Vega speaker and then in the next post, you know, they bash an AT15 and then in the next post they rave uncontrollably over a KL Edge model 17. You know, it's just stupid. So people in these rooms, except for the Cerwin-Vega rooms, have very little knowledge about Cerwin-Vega, and you shouldn't listen to them at all. And when they start trash talking them, it just shows how little they really, really know. They have maybe heard one pair in their life at a party and they were drunk. And it was pushed to the limits with a small amp. That tells you everything. So, I get this question all the time. What kind of amplifier should I use? Well, Carver, Crown, Crest, Electro Voice are good PA, and B52 are good PA amplifiers that you can use. When it comes to hi-fi, Krell, Electrocompagnia, Dynamic Precision, Class A, and there's, I'm sure there's more, there's many more, but they're expensive as hell. Mondial, Acarus, stay away, for all sake, stay away from receivers. Don't use receivers on Cerwin-Vega. I don't care how new they are, how big they are, how much power they have. Stay away. Receivers do not have the same control as a dedicated power amplifier and preamplifier. It's a totally different story. I have, in fact, you guys have seen it, I have used receivers on my big Cerwin-Vegas for one reason only. When I get a new receiver in, I want to test that receiver to see how good it is. And if the receiver can play fairly well on my Cerwin-Vegas, then I know that there will be really good on my Altex and Advents and other smaller speakers that I have and other type of speakers that I have, because the other speakers are not as demanding as Cerwin-Vega. People seem to not know that. They look at Cerwin-Vega and say, well, it has a high sensitivity, very efficient speaker, so it doesn't take a lot of power. It doesn't need a lot of power. You couldn't be further from the truth. Cerwin-Vega is a very, very, very demanding speaker. You know why? No. Some of you guys do in the Cerwin-Vega room that I run, but most of you other guys don't know this. Cerwin-Vega back in the day cheated. To get high sensitivity and high efficiency, they cheated. Yeah. And how did they cheat? Well, if you look at all their 4 ohm drivers, they are closer to 3 ohm. Very close to 3 ohm. Their 8 ohm drivers are very, very close to 5.5, 6 ohm. So they can state on the paper that it's 8 ohm, but it's not. They can state on the paper that it's 4 ohm, but it's not. It's closer to 3 ohm. How do you think an old receiver will respond to a 3 ohm load? And take this into inclusion that when you play, it dips up and down. So a 3 ohm speaker from Cerwin-Vega that is labeled as 4 can hit maybe 1.9, 1.8 ohm during playing. How do you think that receiver is going to act? If you have an old receiver that most of them do not recommend below 4 ohm, see, you have a problem. It's all about knowledge, isn't it? So before you start bashing a brand, maybe you should take time to learn a little bit about the brand and not just relate to some drunken party you went to when you were 18 years old, or you're sitting in your home now with your hearing aid and you try to get it up and running. I have taken on a mission to defend the brand Cerwin-Vega because I'm a big fan of them, not because they're the greatest speakers in the world, but because of personal reasons, many other reasons. I will defend Cerwin-Vega from here to the moon, and if I have to transform into the Wolverine with 12-inch claws, I will. And I just, that's why when I see stupid people in these Facebook rooms bash and trash Cerwin-Vega, I will do anything and everything to make them look like a freaking fool. If I want to be sarcastic, if I want to be mean, if I want to hurt someone's feelings and I need a tissue, let me know. I can send you some baby wipes, okay? Because if you can't handle the truth, when you sit there and spew out lies and incorrect things, what did that tell you about you? Maybe you should join us in the Cerwin-Vega room and we will school you. We are 800 people strong and we can school you from here to kingdom come. Because you clearly don't know what you're freaking talking about. So, don't take this video as the only way to do it. Because there are different amps out there. There is differences in amps. One 25 watt amp can be way better than another 25 watt amp. So some people say, well, I have tube amps of 25, 30, 40 watts and it plays really well. Great. If it works, then it works. Then it's great. But a solid state 25 watt receiver from 1969 with bad caps, it's not going to do it on an AT12 or an AT15. I can tell you that. It will play music. And if you're happy with it, it's all be it, you know. But if you put 400 watts on it, it's going to open up a totally different world for you. And you will be going, whoa! What have I been missing out on? Okay? So with that in mind, oh, hey! I have a special thing for you guys. Bad Dog speakers. I have one pair of 15-inch passive subwoofers just almost done. And I mentioned the price. The price might go down a little bit. It depends. I have found some really cool stuff for you guys. It comes up for sale probably mid-June. So keep an eye on that.